Our recording, and Karen, it's all yours. Karen, did you want to do the introduction?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is being, just hold on, I gotta do this so it's. Well, we want to thank Bryan for joining us this morning. We did sort of a last minute switch a couple weeks ago, so I really appreciate him joining us on a short notice. Bryan Johnson is the recycling coordinator at the City of Madison and also the public information officer for the City of Madison Streets Department. I'll just mention quickly, all of us, not all of us, but some of us are of the age where we remember when newspaper recycling was kind of a novel idea. And I have to say as a kid, I was always interested in environmental issues, and it's super exciting to see all the progress that's being made and, recycling and so many sustainable practices. And I also feel like as a citizen of Madison, Madison's really a leader in many ways in this realm. So I'm excited to hear more about what the city's doing and look forward to this talk. And also just want to encourage people to jot down questions for the end if they have anything they want to ask Bryan. So with that, I'll let you take it over, Bryan.
Okay, so I am by no means a technological wizard either. So if I kind of fumble the screen share and things like that, I apologize in advance, but I will do my best. As you're thinking of topics, something else to consider as the streets division with the snow that we got on the ground. If you ever want to hear more about snow plowing and how the city streets division does that, be happy to come out and explain that the best we possibly can. One other thing is that if you watch the CBS Sunday morning show, there was a little call out about Madison's being a climate haven because we're kind of uniquely positioned to be where we are in the country to be fairly resilient to big kind of climate changes from like wildfires and this and that. Oh, you can't hear me. Okay. Can anybody else hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thumbs up? Okay. Okay, yeah. All right. But anyway, sorry, Karen, I don't know why I'm not coming through on your end. But if you go to YouTube and just look for the Sunday morning show, you can catch that clip if you haven't seen it. The mayor is on there talking a little bit about just how Madison, where we are, how lucky we are to be in the position that we are, and our commitment to sort of sustainability efforts writ large in that. So mention the paper recycling too. I usually like to introduce myself as I'm Bryan Johnson, the recycling coordinator. For those that remember George Dreckman, I'm the guy that replaced George. It's been about 5 years, but I still got to introduce myself as being George's replacement because he was just that iconic of a guy. And I like to say that I replaced him in position, but not disposition. So we're both Cardinal fans, so that kind of shows a certain amount of good judgment on my part, perhaps. I grew up outside of St. Louis. I come by it genetically. I can't help it. But anyway, so let's get this show on the road. So I have a pretty detailed PowerPoint I'm going to show. I'm going to get through as quick as we can. There's a little video that I'm going to show too, provided the technology lets us. I know sometimes.
Yeah.
There we go. I know sometimes sharing the videos can be a little tricky sometimes if the Wi-Fi connections aren't great. So we'll give it a shot. We'll see if it works. And if it winds up not working, I'll tell you how to find that video because it's pretty instructive as how the recycling systems work and why the rules are what they are in the city. So let me share my screen and let's get this PowerPoint on the road. Can everybody see that? See a nodding from Ruth there. So I'm going to say if Ruth can see it, everybody can see it. We're going to, because there's only 3 people in my little corner view and you're one of them, Ruth. So you're going to be my my canary in the coal mine here if something goes wrong. But yeah, so whenever we talk, these are the 3 carts that we have in Madison. We'll talk more about this black and orange one a little bit later, But yeah, so when it comes to recycling in the city of Madison, we are the oldest recycling as far as a municipal curbside collection. We're the oldest one in the US. We started in 1968 with newspapers. So we beat Earth Day by a couple years, which is traditionally thought as the birthing of recycling concerns in the US. We were there first. And this is actually a photo of what our collections looked like back then. This photo's from the early 70s, actually. And if you want to know more about our recycling history and where things stand, there's the website there as well. And of course, things have changed in the past 50 something years, from guys running up to the curb grabbing bags of newspapers to us using a robotic arm to grab carts at the curb and dumping them in the truck. And what we can recycle too has changed quite a bit. This is sort of a class photo of all the stuff that can go into your recycling cart now. So, but what makes recycling work? Really, I like to think of it as that's the raw materials that make the circular economy work. And it's that economy part of it that drives a lot of the whole recycling thing in the first place. Unless somebody on the back end could take that thing you don't want anymore and make something new out of it, recycling doesn't work. It's not really an altruistic thing. Even back in '68, we were lucky enough to have the Forest Products Lab in town, who was working with the American Paper Institute to try to find a new way to source paper to make newspapers. Turns out we had a lot of newspaper, and it made economic sense to recycle it rather than keep parking it in the landfill. And that's really what kicked off this whole thing that we have. So what the heck is going on with these news stories? I'm sure you've seen them over the past couple of years, and they still trickle out from time to time about recycling's terrible, recycling's in crisis. This has been a couple years now with these sort of bad headlines. Every publication has one. Even the Weather Channel in the bottom right-hand corner did a story about how recycling is in trouble, I think last year. It was wild. It's all over the place. So what's at the root of this? Well, it's economics. That's what's the driving behind it. See, in 2018, China changed their importing rules. So what that did, stuff that was shipped overseas had to be a very very clean to get imported into their country. And so that created more supply and demand. Stuff that was going over there couldn't go anywhere anymore. All that material was staying domestically, and that increased supply, and the demand didn't change. And so the money sort of bottomed out. And because the money was bad, that's what drove all of those nasty headlines. And the changes are still happening too. This year, supposedly, there's going to be a ban of China importing all scrap into their country at all, which could have some ripple effects throughout the economy, at least this solid waste recycling economy. Don't know if that's happened yet. China's a bit of a black box because they've made threats about stopping importing or changing their rules for years. And so more often than people quit taking them seriously. And in 2018, they actually did it. And that's kind of caused everybody to panic and cause those bad headlines. There's also some changes with this international treaty about how plastic scrap moves across borders that might have some ripple effects for us. So we'll have to wait and see. We are pretty low on the totem pole when it comes to things rippling down to us, but eventually we might see some things. So but the other thing that's important with these headlines, the reason why you see them is sort of an underappreciated weird part about recycling. It's not nationwide. There's no nationwide recycling mandate or rules. Every state has their own set of rules, and even those set of rules vary state to state. Like only 27 states have any kind of recycling mandate, and that mandate isn't the same between different states. So Idaho makes you recycle lead batteries, and that's the only thing that's really required by state law there. Maine has a different requirement, which is weird. Like you can see that on the screen, where it's universities and businesses with more than 15 employees in one location have to recycle certain batteries, computers, tube TVs, cardboard, and paper. That's kind of odd. But then the states that don't have big mandates, like you would look on that map, you'd think a state like Oregon and New York, considering the headlines they get, would have a statewide mandate. But they don't. They have a different sort of set of rules there about how the municipalities are more responsible for it. And then there's certain other thresholds after so many people. I think it's Oregon, it's more than 50,000 people, then the municipality has to have some sort of rule, but doesn't really say what those rules have to be. It's a mess, and that kind of creates a lot of confusion, especially as people sort of move around the US. And it has been felt here too. Like those changes in China was something that has been felt locally. Like during some of the high times of recycling with our current contract with our pelletary waste systems, that's who takes the recycling, process it, sorts it, sells it. We have a revenue sharing model with them right now where things they sell, if the market's good, we get money back. Like in 2017, we actually were earning back $16 a ton for every ton of recyclables that we took to pelletary, which is good. That money then goes back to the general fund. Last year, things were different because we actually had to pay $15 a ton total. See, there's still money in it though. Paying $15 a ton to take recyclables to pelletary is still way cheaper than going to a landfill with it. But still, it's a big change where during the good years, we were getting $1 million back to the general fund from our recycling. That's not the case right now. It won't be for a while. The reason why is those market changes, things are lower than what they were before. And this is the other problem with our recycling. You can kind of see it in the picture there. About 19% of what we put into our recycling cart is trash. Doesn't belong there. This particular photo we snapped, there was the basketball that you can see there. Doesn't belong in your recycling cart. What looks to be like a fake Christmas tree type of thing there that was crammed in there. No idea what's in that plastic bag either. Whenever we saw this, we took the photo of it. I didn't dig all that stuff out because I didn't know what other trouble lied on beneath that top layer of stuff. I didn't have gloves on me. So but this is just sort of an example of like, we're putting too much garbage in there because that makes the recycling more expensive because what pelletary has to do, they have to sort it out, which can be dangerous to their equipment, to their people, can be kind of gross, fish that stuff out, and then they have to pay to dispose of it. And that in turn comes back to the city. We have to pay for that as well because it's our trash that shouldn't be in there in the first place. So we're responsible for paying for some of that. So what do we do? What the heck? What do we do with this stuff that we have that we keep buying and needing to get rid of? Keep recycling. The recycling system's adapting them, and actually with sort of the pandemic has actually sort of helped recycling markets in some way because it created more demand for paper products. So for a little over a year, paper was worth literally nothing. That was the thing hit hardest with that China ban or the China change with their import rules. But because the pandemic created such a big demand for paper products like cardboard and box board and everything else that raised up the value of those paper products. And so we're a little bit closer to breaking even on the recycling money these past 2 months. But because there's so much trash in there, there's still a cost to it, unfortunately. And plus, Wisconsin, we're one of the states that has a really strong recycling law. Like well over 90% of what you're supposed to put in the cart is required to be there by state law. I get questions a lot about like, what really happens with the plastic? What happens with this stuff? It's like, well, number ones and number twos by state law have to be recycled. So a processor on the back end, those two types of plastics are valuable right now. Number twos in particular are worth a lot of money in the recycling world. And they're not going to try to get fined from the DNR or risk that problem to try to sneak stuff away to break that law. Like it's just not worth it. There's money there and it's not worth trying to break the law. And that's not the same for other states. Like all those headlines, you'll see something like such and such place in Arizona is putting cardboard in the landfill because blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, you could probably do that in Arizona, but you can't do that here. Plus just the market's different. We have paper mills here. We have access to better markets than maybe places on the coast. It's just different state to state. So the one thing that we can do, the one thing that we can control is making certain that you're recycling the right way in your home and by following those recycling rules. This little slide here is actually a little flyer that you can print off from the Streets Division website. If you go to cityofmadison.com/recycling, you can get this actually on your recycling carts. Many of the new ones have the directions of what should go in the cart printed on the lid. We can mail out magnets to people by request. If you want like a little 3x5 recycling magnet of this image to pop on the fridge to kind of as a little reminder as to what should go in there, what shouldn't, that would be fine too. But just that little bit of control, like not putting basketballs in the recycling cart or Christmas trees and things like that, or anything tangly. They see a lot of like ropes and hoses and other things that just don't belong in the cart that kind of mucks things up for them. So All right, now I'm going to try to show this video, because one of the things that's important, if you see the way the recycling is actually sorted on the back end, kind of appreciate why some of the rules are what they are here. So I'm going to try to pull a little maneuver here. We're going to see if it works. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to share it again. And where is it? Shoot. Okay. One sec. I forgot to open up something, I think. There we go. I'm slowly learning. There we go. Okay, so if you want to watch, if this video is really clippy and it doesn't really work on your end, the best way to find it is go to YouTube, and you want to look for like Kip Street Recycling, so Kip with 2 P's. This is a video that Pelletary Waste Systems put together that shows what their sorting process looks like. They're right here in Madison. They're over on the east side. So if the video is kind of weird on your end, I really recommend watching this thing. It's 6 minutes of your time. And let me go ahead, let this play, and hopefully this works for everybody.
Been helpful.
Hey, Brian.
Yep.
Folks are not really hearing anything at this moment. Do you want to just kind of do a voiceover?
Yeah, hang on. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Let me see if I can turn the volume up, maybe. A little better.
Sorry, not yet.
Okay.
But if you can
Okay,
kind of
so
just describe the processes that you're seeing, that I think people would appreciate that, particularly those that are on the phone.
gotcha. Okay. So so really what this part is, let me hit the play button here. So they're trying to do a lot of the, it's going to be hard. I'm going to be hearing the person narrating it in my ear. So they're using these screens here to sort the paper out. So the paper goes up, and the more 3-dimensional objects roll backwards on the screen. So like bottles and stuff like that kind of winds up getting mixed out of the paper. That's what those first kind of roll screens are doing, is trying to get the paper separated from everything 3-dimensional in the plastic containers. And then so what this part here too is that this obstacle sorter is trying to find plastic items, or is this the magnet part? Okay, that's what it is. So it's trying to find the things that are flattened that don't belong with the paper to knock them out of that paper line. There's a scanner basically that could tell the type it's plastic. If it's kind of bouncing along in the paper line, it could shoot air at it and bounce it to another spot in the system. With this one, these people here are looking for more contaminants, but they're also looking for things like phone books or cartons. It's their job to grab those things by hand and pull them off the line, both the trash and like the 3-dimensional boxes and stuff. And then it's still going to more paper stuff. There's still more people trying to pick out stuff that don't belong on the paper. You can see that like Gatorade bottle that person plucked off, and trying to find all these other things that don't belong that still wind up hanging around in that paper, because they're trying to keep it as clean as they possibly can in order to have this big bale of paper that's clean as they can. And so what this is, they're kind of getting into, there's a pine cone, trying to get the yeah, so the really now what's left after they sort all the paper out, or all this stuff out from the paper, it's this work to trying to get the other cans out. This is right now where they have a magnet that pulls the tin, and this magnet is able to make the aluminum things react, and it jumps off the conveyor belt line to go to a special aluminum like bunker area of the recycling. So after the metal stuff's been removed, we just have plastic stuff bouncing along the conveyor belt. So it's just, it's trash they haven't been able to pluck out, and then robots, and then, or trash, and then the plastics left. What these robots are doing, they're trying to get number 2 plastic bottles out of there. So they're programmed to be able to read what's the kind of plastic it is, and they can pluck it off that line. And then the stuff they don't pluck goes to another one of these obstacle sorters, where this ray of light can read what type of plastic it is. And then if it's the right type of plastic, it shoots a little jet of air at it and bounces it into the next conveyor, or into the next kind of bunker area. Excuse me. Yep. And so and this final bit of line here, what this is sort of the trash line. This is the stuff that doesn't really belong. They couldn't sort out through the system beforehand. But this robot's trying to do is find the plastic or the recyclable stuff that still managed to sneak through everything else. And then all that stuff that robot misses, or is actually trash, that goes out to the landfill. What this stuff is, these are bales of aluminum cans that we're seeing here. So after all that stuff gets sorted, it goes into these bunkers, then it's fed into this baling system, where they compact them into these 1-ton cubes basically, and store it. With the cardboard, most of that cardboard and paper products go to paper mills either in Indiana or here in Wisconsin. The metal goes to a local metal recycler, usually like Alter Metal on that, where they melt it down for new metal stuff. Like aluminum cans go new aluminum cans. The plastics, so what happens, plastics go to processors that shred it, and then that material gets sold kind of around the US to make new plastic stuff, whether it's like drainage tiles, plastic lumber, plastic like edging, and other sort of plastic things like that. Okay. I've never had to narrate that before, so I strongly recommend you guys watch the video yourself. The professional that does that does a way better job than me when it comes to explaining that stuff. I've watched it too many times. Usually whenever we can do live presentations, I usually just like that's the time when I get a drink and kind of walk around. And so I haven't watched it all the way through it a bit. So but if you go to YouTube, you could try looking up Pelletary if you want to try to spell it. I know that's a little bit of a high wire act, but the way I learned how to spell that, it's Pel letter I, so P-E-L-L. Then the word litter is in their name because they're in the trash business, and then the letter I, or just Kip Street Recycling. They have 2 sorting videos. You want to watch the one that's like 7 minutes long, because that's the most recent one. That shows the robots that they have in there. It also shows a little bit of their glass cleanup system that they have. The glass is actually it's infinitely recyclable, but it's also very dirty, especially when it gets kicked out of in these recycling systems, because any kind of the way the system works in the first bit of it, whenever this kind of going up that first conveyor belt, glass is broken and it falls through these screens that are about the size of a large like salsa tub, say, something like that, maybe a little smaller than that, and all the glass kind of falls through those holes. Or it's smaller than that, it's like quarter or $50 sized holes, these screens that happen. So the glass is broken and the glass falls through those little holes. And then, so anything else small winds up getting mixed in with the glass. That's why you have to bag shredded paper, because loose, it winds up in the glass. Any other kind of weird bits of grit or stone or porcelain or pen caps or anything tiny like bottle caps, all wind up getting mixed in with the glass. There you go. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing the link in the chat. There's, and so that's, and so they have to try to get it cleaned up as best they can, so it can go to the one glass recycler that's in the state, who has to then clean it up even more to be able to make new bottles out of it. They also have to color sort it, so all the clear glass goes to one area, the green goes to another, the brown goes to another. And glass is expensive. On the back end, it's heavy, and it's just because of all the extra handling with it. It's pretty spendy. We have never made any sort of revenue off glass, just because it's usually pretty dirty stuff. But let's get back to the regular presentation here. Let's see here. I think that's the right one. There we go. So when you were looking at that video, that's why whenever we talk about plastic things, we say plastic containers. The container part, we should probably do a better job stressing that, because you need that three-dimensional stuff so it bounces through that system the right way. Anything flat acts like paper. Now they do have controls there to try to pluck some of that stuff out of there, like the flattened cans or the any kind of plastic sheets and stuff like that, but it's not perfect. You will still get stuff that slips in there. That's why it's important that whenever we say plastic containers, it's containers. The reason I talked about the glass for a little bit, that's why you don't really want anything in your recycling cart that's smaller than a Post-it note, because if it's smaller than that, it's probably going to get mixed in with the glass and be one more thing they have to pluck out there on the back end. So let's see, there we go. And honestly, our materials are changing. I mean, the rules are changing, the economy is changing on the back end, and the stuff in our lives is constantly changing too. Those little single-use coffee pods are a bit of a bear, because people throw them in the recycling, and they're the perfect size to clog that screen. This job it is to sort the glass out. So it kind of messes with their ability to sort the glass. Plus, they're full of coffee for the most part. I commend the people of Keurig that's trying to find a way to recycle those things to make them more acceptable around the country, but it's tough because of their shape. That's those stand-up squeeze pouches. There's a movement to get things into stuff called flexible packaging, like these stand-up kind of squeezy thingies, or like how tuna doesn't really come in a can anymore. It's in the kind of that like aluminum foil packaging stuff. It's probably great for shippers. It might have some environmental benefit because you're not like wasting so much space in the truck when you're shipping it from point A to point B, but there's no back end recyclability for these things yet. They don't have a market for them because those kind of robot systems on the back end and the people can't pluck them out. Plus, there's not really a market for that material yet either, to take these sort of flexible packaging mixed stuff and to make them into a new thing. It's not there yet. That's one of the troubles in the industry, is that the people that produce the things always seem to get out ahead of the ability for some people on the back end to reclaim that stuff. It's problematic. There's, of course, our electric bicycles that we have. Those are giant lithium batteries on those things, and they pose a whole other set of problems, which we'll talk about a little bit. And these kind of things on the bottom came from some of those food prep areas, or those food prep meal box plan things. Like this here is actually, it says recycle me on it, but I'm thinking they meant reuse me or repurpose, because this is like a bag of gel. It's kind of like a freezer bag thing, or something you would put like on if you sprain your knee or something like that. You don't want to put that in your recycling cart. I mean, one, it's like, it's the wrong kind of plastic bag full of goo. Like that doesn't belong in your cart. And this sort of weird papery thing here is like, there's all sorts of different ways they're making paperwork. I'm going to show an example here in a little bit what that looks like too, but it's tough. And the things that can go into the cart can be dangerous. I don't know if you saw this press release here. This happened just here recently on the 14th of January. We had a fire in one of our recycling trucks on the west side. This is actually near the corner of Lucia Crest, I'm sorry, and North Blackhawk Avenue, where something in the truck combusted and caused all the recyclables to catch on fire. So our operator had to dump them out on the street, drive away, so the whole truck didn't go up in flames. And So she was safe, the truck was saved, the fire department was able to put the big recycling fire out that was on the street, and all that stuff had to go to the landfill because it got hosed down with stuff. What causes those fires are the two main culprits are lithium batteries. So things that are in our cell phones, and anytime you see a lot of computers are charged with lithium batteries. There's tons and tons of things like those little watch batteries that you see. They're the size of coins. Those are all lithium batteries. The big bike battery thing, also a lithium battery. What happens with those lithium ion ones, particularly lithium polymer batteries, when they get punctured, they spark. And so if something sparks like that in an environment with tons and tons of paper, you will have fires. It is a problem the world around that has any kind of recycling program. People kind of throw in things, particularly batteries, into the recycling cart out of the hope that it can be recycled, or really wishing it can be recycled, and then setting things on fire as a result. Little 1 pound propane tanks too are also bad about that, because if they, there's little camp stove type thingies, if they get any kind of punctured or captured or ruptured, if they spark, then you can get a fire there too. Pelletary, I believe, lost a truck sometime in December to a fire. They had some really, I think Channel 3, I believe, did a story about that back in December here. And frankly, some of our stuff is super confusing too. It's hard out there for a consumer because stuff's changing, things can be dangerous, and then certain consumers up and do things like this. That plastic thing on the left is it's a 6-pack ring. You kind of see where they clip on top of the cans instead of the ones that kind of go around the lip of the can on the top. They kind of click on the top. Right there printed on the top of this is 100% HDPE recyclable. Probably true, but not like that because it's too flat. You put that thing in your green cart, it's going to wind up with the paper. I mean, maybe the optical sorters can sort that stuff out, but probably a really good chance of it mixing the paper. So that's not necessarily true. And this thing here on the right is like foam sheeting. It's something I got, some furniture or bookshelf or something I ordered online, and it came with all this foam sheeting wrapped around the pressboard stuff that had all that recycling triangle printed right there on the side. Now, I have no doubt that foam sheet might very well be made from number 4 plastic, but that does not belong in your recycling cart because it'll get wrapped around all those sorters. When you watch that video, all those roll screens that we saw, anything tangly gets wrapped around that stuff, like Christmas tree lights, ropes, hoses are all kind of big problems with that. Clothes, they fish a lot of clothes out of our recycling. Actually, clothes is also something too that confuses the robots because there's so much plastic in our clothes that if they're not able to pluck it out, those robots can grab on to plastic things too, and they sense that it's like, oh, it's number 2 plastic, and they try to suction cup onto it, that it sucks it up into the robot, and then they have to stop everything, go out there, untangle the robot, and then fire up everything again so it can go one more time. So what do we do as a consumer? It's really stay informed the best you possibly can, and staying in touch with those official resources, because your municipality, I imagine everybody here lives in Madison, but if we have anybody from Fitchburg or a town or something like that, like, stay in touch with what the rules are where you live and make certain you follow what those rules are, whatever they may be. And then, because this happened just recently in my neighborhood, I live on the east side, and somebody posted on the neighborhood's Facebook page, hey, what do I do with the toaster? So I saw it, luckily the expert that I am, and explained what the rules are. But I mean, I'm not always on the Facebook page. I'm not on Nextdoor, and as confident and as well-meaning as we are when we kind of post things to neighborhood groups, not everybody's super informed about this stuff. That's actually something we're looking to hopefully change coming up this year. I don't have a slide for it, but the city is working with Sustain Dane to set up a master recycling course where people can go sign up, get trained up, and that way they can feel empowered and have some tools to kind of go out into their community or church groups and kind of be that sort of expert on the ground to provide this advice to people, and to kind of cut down on that wish cycling. So maybe we have fewer basketballs and pants put in the recycling stuff. And the 2021 Recyclopedia, I promise you, coming out any day. like my intention was to get this thing done in November. The pandemic has scrambled some things for us, so we keep having to make changes to the booklet, and so I don't have them printed yet. But we're super close to actually be able to print the thing. So as soon as we can, I'll have that'll be available on the Streets Division website. And once we're able to go places in person again and pick up things, then they'll be around like libraries, and maybe I'll try grocery stores in that this time, so you can be able to get those, and you'd be able to request them by mail too. So, and a few other things that's important about recycling, there's, for all the troubles and all the difficulties, there's still lots of opportunities for the stuff that we have in our lives. If you live in if you live in the city of Madison, the drop-off sites have a ton of stuff that you can get rid of. Electronics should come to the drop-off site, not your cart, because as we saw, they can start fires. You can bring styrofoam to the drop-off sites to recycle, because in your cart, all those roll screens will shred it, and those little bits then get everywhere. Brush and yard waste, we don't tend to think of that as recycling, but really it's taking a waste product and turning it into like compost or mulch. That's it's the same thing. It's the same sort of process. The tires, big metal things, cooking oil, appliances, batteries, they can come to the Streets Division drop-off sites. Our drop-off sites are very difficult to get to right now, being totally honest, because we're on winter hours. But so we're open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and that's it. We're down about a dozen people at the Streets Division right now, just from retirements and not able to hire them because of the hiring freeze and other sorts of just trouble managing the staff. So like winter always kind of restricts our hours, but it's particularly narrow this year. And there's other opportunities to recycle stuff too. You can always donate things. There are about a dozen different resale opportunities in Madison. Please use them. It's much better to take a usable dresser to a place like St. Vinny's or a Grace or some place like that, rather than setting it at the curb, posting it online, hoping somebody's just going to come by and get it. Because if no one does, it gets rained on, it's ruined. Oh, Mike, running out of time? I heard like an okay, I'll talk faster. So so there's tons of stuff out there. Like other things is important to know about your waste. Hazardous waste has to go to Dane County Clean Sweep, from everything from like paint to nail polish remover. Anything that can catch on fire or poison you should go there. Medical sharps, don't just put them in the trash, whether it be lancets, used or unused EpiPens, just if diabetes, things like that. There's medical sharps containers. Those are places that'll go around. And medicine. There's lots of med drop locations around. Most of them are in the lobbies of police departments, but there are 2 Walgreens that have them as well. It's the 2 24-hour Walgreens that we have at Madison. It's on the one on Mineral Point Road, and then the one out at 51 and East Wash right there. So I do want to talk really quickly about food scraps, because I think that's important too, because that makes up about a quarter of what we put into the trash every year is food scraps. And that's a usable thing. When you look to figure out something to recycle, there's like 3 things you look at. Like 1 is volume of stuff, 2 is it toxic, and 3, do you have an opportunity to pull it out? And about a quarter of what we throw away is food that can be composted. We can return these nutrients to the soil and do other things with it. It's a shame to just park it into the landfill where it's not going to do a whole lot of good. So very recently, I don't know if you saw the news, we were selected to be part of this Food Matters initiative through the Natural Resources Defense Council. It's actually kind of a big honor. We were with a bunch of other very large cities compared to Madison, like Cincinnati, Chicago, Detroit, and Columbus, Ohio. They're going to work with us for the next 2.5 years to help solve food system problems in the city. So hopefully we get a little better on like getting food into hungry people's mouths, just preventing waste on the front end, and maybe hopefully getting some sort of composting thing set up if we can make it work. We also just recently wrapped up an EPA funded study where we wanted to look to see what it would cost and does it make sense for the city to invest in an anaerobic biodigester. Basically, it's a machine that acts like a big metal stomach, that where you park food scraps in it, is able to capture the methane that gets released from that stuff that's composting, and then you can make that methane or clean and compress that gas and sell it as natural gas into the interstate pipelines. That's what that picture is actually. It's of a facility that lets you do that. Dane County is doing that with the landfill gas right now. The gas the landfill is being released is getting cleaned up at this facility, then pumped into a pipeline that happens to run right under the landfill campus. And you can bring other biogas there and dump and put it into the pipeline from the system that they built. And so we wanted to see, does it make sense to build something just for food scraps? You see a lot of these digesters at dairy farms and things like that. It was actually when I'm like during the, not to talk politics or anything, but I was watching one of the debates. It wasn't the debates, but when Joe Biden had mentioned, he was talking about chicken poop going into digesters or something like that. Like he kind of scrambled what he was trying to say, but he was talking about a biodigester. I wanted to high five somebody because I'd never seen like a politician talk about that stuff before. I was very happy that it was brought up. But that studies just got done as to what it would cost and what the revenue is possible for the city to do. Also, we're trying to do a food scrap program ourselves right now. We have a constant contamination problem, but if we keep it clean and do it right, there's one spot that's currently willing to work with us to take food scraps that comes into our drop-off sites. If you go to cityofmadison.com/food scraps, you can find out more about what's acceptable in that program there. It's only seasonal, it's April to October. This program we've been trying to do something like this for 10 years and things keep failing. We keep running into problems. So I have I'm always pessimistic. I'm hopeful that we can do it, but I've had the rug yanked out for me so many times with this program. I'm always kind of waiting for it to happen again. So though we're going to start it in April 2021, but if it ends in June, it's sort of, I hope it doesn't, but be ready just in case. But ultimately too, when it comes down to it, so there's all this, our stuff's complicated. We try to recycle the best we can. There's plenty of opportunities that we have around here locally, but the streets division, we still collect 45,000 tons of trash every single year without fail. And then that's just what we collect as the streets division. We don't pick up from those apartment towers downtown. We don't pick up from the university. Most restaurants don't enter into the streets division's collection universe because we just do those curbside carts. So that anything, big employment centers and stuff like that, that's not us. So 45,000 tons is the floor that our community generates every year. That doesn't even go into like what the suburbs like Middleton and Sun Prairie and Waunakee and those places are generating too. So there's so much garbage that we are pumping out every single year. What do we do? Even with all our opportunities and our recycling expertise that we have as a community, what do we do with all this stuff still? The options are limited right now, honestly. We can recycle it, but there's this global commodity system that has to work on the back end to take the thing you don't want anymore to make it into a new doohickey. You can stick it into a landfill, which isn't great because you're taking land that could otherwise be used for something else and turning into a place to park things you don't want anymore. Dane County, I should note, does the best job you possibly can at running a landfill with when they're closing cells out there now, they're planting a bunch of like pollinator friendly plants on their landfill to try to get that going. They do the best job you possibly can capturing the gas, but it's still a big piece of land that was farmland that isn't farmland anymore. Because what do you do? And you can do waste to energy things. We actually used to do that in Madison a long time ago, but it's a one-way use of resources. There's no circularity to it. So if you're taking stuff you don't want anymore, burning it to make electricity, you're not stopping that waste generation. We can still be wasteful. And then there's air pollution concerns that goes with that. And like it's usually used worldwide. Actually, Denmark has a really neat waste to energy facility where they built, I forget how many, it's like 10 stories tall building that they actually built an artificial ski ramp on the top of. So it's like a tourist thing. So you can go to this waste to energy facility and you can ski down this AstroTurf roof thing that they have while they're burning garbage for electricity in this thing. When I first saw it, I thought it was fake. I thought it was just some weird internet thing, but like it's 100% real. I actually talked to somebody from Denmark about it. Like it's a real thing. But in the future, maybe there's something like chemical recycling. You see that a lot with like, how do we handle plastics better? We're trying to using some chemical processes to break down plastic to its like molecular parts to make new plastic things out of it. Maybe that right now, like, it's not economical and it's only focused on like industrial resources because it's hard to like stick these microbes on like a big mixed bale of plastic like what we would have out of our homes. Like if it's from a manufacturing facility, it's only making one type of plastic stream. A little easier to control that. How does that translate to our homes and that and the stuff that we generate? It's tough, you know. There's so really what it comes down to, it's the 3 R's, you know. And but really I like to think of them as 5 R's instead. Because the first step really is sort of rethinking, right? It's like kind of giving yourself a moment to pause to think about the waste that you're generating. And then the next step is refuse. So stopping accepting some waste into your lives if you can at all help it. You know, it's certainly difficult this day and age with our reusable gloves and masks and everything else and everything being shipped to us online. That's difficult, you know. But I like to, especially if you happen to own a business, say, and you're ordering things, that stuff comes individually wrapped in plastic wrap. Like, well, why? Like, why? Maybe you don't, maybe you can say no to that. For ordering takeout, maybe rather than getting things in a bag, if you can carry it, just have them hand it to you that way instead. Or refusing the single-use cutlery stuff if you can. Little things all adds up. And then it's the basic reduce the amount of trash you make, reuse what you can, reuse and fix what you can, and repair, of course. And then the last step is recycling. It's sort of that last thing. You can always do more bang for your buck by like stopping the waste on the front end before you get to that recycling at the end. I know it's sort of weird for the recycling coordinator to be sitting here on a Sunday morning and telling you all that recycling is the last step. It's still good. It's better than putting it in the landfill. Don't get me wrong. But if we can do those other steps before we get to that recycle step, you're going to make more of an impact, and you don't have to worry about needing this incredibly complex, constantly changing global system of stuff to be functioning the right way in order for you to do the right thing with your stuff on the back end. So there's my last slide. It has the information there about who to contact if you have questions about that stuff. Because again, I really implore everybody, trust your official resources for stuff. If you don't know, ask. We're here to help. I know I'm Bryan Johnson. I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. Ha ha ha. I know that joke. So there's the recycling website. There's the phone numbers to call. That's my desk phone number. And if hang on. If I'm perfectly honest, I don't answer that phone that much because I'm usually busy doing other stuff. If you leave me a voicemail, I will call you back. Or if you call that number and hit 0, you will get to talk to one of the people at the West Side Streets Division office. They know just about as much stuff as I do, and if they don't, they can find me and we can get the answer. And there's the email as well. Because I get all of those emails to the General Streets inbox, which I should probably check today because it snowed, so I probably got about a dozen complaints or so in there about the snowy streets. But yeah, and if you have a recycling question and you email me, it's helpful to include a photo if you can, just because that's always helpful because our stuff's so weird. It's it's useful that. So I have a couple other things. I have a little show and tell thing I wanted to do. So I'm going to stop the share, and a couple things I wanted to show you guys real quick. First up is like when I talk about styrofoam, like this is the stuff I'm talking about. It's sort of the molded brick stuff, you know, that's like styrofoam coolers, and this is off some electronic thing. Now, it'll be hard to see, but you'll notice it has a little recycling triangle on there. That does not mean put it in your cart. It just means that this thing is made from number 6 plastic, which is what polystyrene is. But that triangle itself isn't like an automatic put it in the cart thing, because if I put this in my green cart, all that sorting stuff would rip this to shreds. But I can take this to the drop-off site where we'd haul all the styrofoam to a company on the east side of Madison, where they basically chip it up, make these really disgusting coils of styrofoam that's all condensed down, and then they sell it on the open market. For a while, there was stuff made as styrofoam, or they were making picture frames out of it. That process has stopped, but there's still a market for that kind of material. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I got. This is something else that I wanted to show everybody. So we had something shipped to us from Amazon here recently, and this is sort of printed on the envelope. There's that recycling triangle, and it says "Recycle me like a box," right? Now on the inside, you'll see all that weird sort of that stuff there. Whatever. Oh, it's all over my computer now. The that weird sort of foamy looking stuff. This is still okay for your green cart. This is some sort of cornstarch thing, this white fluff. So when you put it in water, it dissolves. So this is okay. And that's one of the things that makes it hard. Not everything that has that recycling logo on it that we saw from the presentation is automatically whip it into the cart. Or if it says recycle me like a box, I'm like that, there's things called greenwashing, is what they call it in the industry, where they print stuff on there to kind of make it feel good, that you can put stuff in the carts or your recycling cart, but doesn't really belong there. And it doesn't, like, here's that foam sheeting thing too, like it doesn't mean that this company was lying about this. It just means that, it doesn't, we still can't put it in the cart, and one last thing I was going to show is like this little thing. I got this thing of like tortillas or something from the co-op, and it had this little thing on here. Now it's usually clear plastic. You think it'd be okay, but hear that. It is. This isn't your standard sort of plastic container. It's way too flimsy, and there's nothing on here at all indicating what type of plastic it's made out of. That's really what that number is telling you. If you see that triangle with the number in it, all it's saying that this thing is made from this type of plastic. So I don't know what this is made from, and it doesn't feel like a normal like plastic container that you'd expect like this. So I'm gonna put this thing in the trash once I get through using it for visual aid on these talks. Because I can't think of what else to use this thing for, and I really regret buying this thing that had this. But I have some other stuff. Well, I probably should answer some questions there, though. Let me get this chat box open. I got time. Everybody okay on time? I know I threw a ton of information at you, so I'm super sorry about all that.
I think we're okay on that level. As people unmute themselves, let me point out that you do have a couple of questions in the chat box. And one of the first ones was, what should I do about hearing aid batteries? Are they lithium?
Yes, they pretty much uniformly are lithium batteries. So those one of the more classic ones. So what you would do with those, take them to the Streets Division drop-off sites, accepts them. Places like Bulbs Batteries Plus, I think it's called now, I believe they take them. The pandemic has scrambled a lot of what businesses take back. Like I know like Best Buy was a good resource for televisions and stuff like that, and it seems to be hit and miss as to whether or not they're offering that stuff anymore. But what you do with lithium batteries, I wish I had some of this with me. You want to get a piece of packing tape, not like Scotch tape, but like the thicker, wider tape that's like, and then you want to cut off a section of it, set the tape sticky side up, get your hearing aid batteries and put them on the tape like ribbon candy, or remember that the candy that has a little buttons that stuck to the wax paper, then you're supposed to bite the candies off, and it's sort of gross, but you did it anyway. And you're kind of making something that looks like that. So you line the batteries up on the sticky side up of the battery, get another chunk of tape, put it on top of those batteries, and then squeeze it in there. So you're making these little like battery pouches. That way you cover it up on both ends with the tape. Clear tape with batteries is hugely important for us. One, if somebody shows up at our drop-off sites with like a fistful of duct tape saying this is batteries, maybe, like, we don't know. we've pulled some weird stuff out of our battery container, for everything from like unfired shotgun shells to diabetes testers and broken light bulbs and all sorts of stuff. So so using that clear tape's important, and covering both sides of it, and then just putting it into a battery bucket at the drop-off site's fine. We still have to go through and sort the batteries. A lot of people sort of treat the battery drop-off thing as sort of like they just empty their drunk drawer and leave. So we get like mercury thermometers and little inhalers, all sorts of stuff. So we have to go through it before it goes. But everybody that takes an extra step to tape the lithium batteries, but also the nickel batteries, A+. 100%. Thank you so much to save us some time. The plastic grocery bags. I see that question from Deb and Debbie. Okay, so bags is something that's going to change here. Right now, really the best thing to do with plastic bags is one, avoid them if you can, and two, take them back to the retailer. Even the grocery stores will still have those sort of take back containers there. The places that accept and take plastic film for recycling like them out of the grocery stores better than out of recovery facilities because they're cleaner, they're drier, they're less messed with all sorts of other stuff that gets mixed in with all the other recycling things out there. So they prefer that stream of material. Right now, per the contract we have with Pelletary, if you bundle them up into a bag the size of a basketball and put it into your cart, technically right, but that's going to change. It's that's not a market the Pelletary has a lot of luck using or selling the stuff on a lot, and a lot of people still put loose plastic film in the cart, and that's one more tangly thing at those sites. Like it gets wrapped around those. We are actually the only place in the entire state that even entertain trying plastic bags in the carts, and we're one of the few places in the country that does it. Most places want no part of it because it just wreaks havoc on that sorting equipment. So if you have a bunch of plastic bags, grocery store is your best bet. If you're bundling them and putting them in the cart, you're not doing anything technically wrong right now, but taking them to a drop-off site's fine.
That
Aluminum foil. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that leads to another question then. Should
Yep.
we be bagging the things that go into the recycle container?
Gotcha. Loose is best if you can. If for some reason your living situation, like I know it's tough for people in apartments, where you have to carry your recycling any kind of distance. The clear bags are fine. Pelletary is willing to wrestle with them because what happens, those first people on that sorting line that from that video that we saw, their job is to pluck stuff off that doesn't belong and getting other kind of metal things. If they can see a bag and they know it's full of recyclables, they can rip it open and then let the machine do its work behind the scene for down the line. If they look at a bag and they don't know what's inside of it, they're just going to assume it's garbage, and then pull it off the line. So if it's like a white bag that they can't see through or a black bag, they're going to say that's trash. They've opened too many bags and had like medical waste fall out or diapers and all sorts of stuff like that in there. So they don't take any chances. So loose is best. If you got to bag it, choose a clear bag. And I've tried to encourage people to, if you are in an apartment situation where you have to carry your recycling out to some other location rather than having the thing in your house or in your garage, you can still use a bag. Just empty the bag out and then use that bag again. Because if you're rinsing out the recyclables and that, like, it's not going to be that gross. Why waste the bag? Just keep using the thing. It's pretty handy. In the chat box, I saw about aluminum foil. Perfectly recyclable if you make it about the size of a baseball. You want to wad it up where it's three-dimensional, baseball, softball sized. And if you get the food off of it, of course, and then it'll bounce through the system just fine and it'll behave the right way. But just sheets of it loose could get with the paper. So you want to ball it up. Toasters. That's actually the question that was posted to my neighborhood's Facebook page, was about toasters. If it looks like a metal toaster, so it's got like a brushed nickel exterior, or it looks metal, so where a person could spot a toaster on that conveyor belt and go, aha, toaster, metal thing, and grab it off the line, it's okay for your cart. But if it's a plastic thing, like it's an all white one, say, or you're not 100% certain it looks all metal enough, at the curb, goes into your trash. But if you want to recycle it, bring it to the drop-off site. Our electronics recycler will take pretty much anything with a plug: box fans, vacuums, toasters, blow dryers, all that stuff, because they can at the very least get the copper out of the cord, and so that's perfectly acceptable bringing that stuff to us. Paper face masks, I would just put those in the trash. I don't know because yeah, I'm not 100% certain what type of paper that is, and those ear loops are probably some sort of string stuff. I would just put them in the garbage. But thank you for picking them up. I see that too. It's really frustrating. That where you see the face masks like lying in parking lots and that. It's like, just take it home with you. Like, it's not like it's not like it's heavy. Same thing with vinyl or plastic gloves. Don't put those in your recycling cart. They don't belong in there. That's a trash item if you're going through a lot of those. Let's see. Shredded paper is recyclable if you bag it up the right way. You want it to be about the size of a basketball, and then tie it closed in a clear or see-through bag. It doesn't have to be perfectly clear. They just have to be able to visually ID it that it's shredded paper. That way they can pull it off the line and get it with the other paper stuff. That's sort of the goal there. Like the ones that I use in my house, they're kind of greenish. I couldn't find a perfectly clear bag, but that's okay. Like, you fill it up, you tie it up, and then you're good to go. The reason why basketball size is important too is that if it's bigger, that first phase of the recycling system is this big, like, paddle wheel looking thing that meters out all the recyclables to get onto that conveyor belt. That paddle wheel will rip open anything bigger than a basketball. Because I know people kind of fill up full trash bags full of the paper. It's like, well, that's just gonna make a mess on the back end of it, especially if it gets ripped open anywhere in the between. So small bags, basketball size, tie it shut, you're good to go. Dairy tub lids. Leaving them on is better. Like I said, they're the right type of plastic. Since they're flat, it could be a problem at the sorting facility. Um, they do have those checks to try to get it out there. You know, those obstacle sorters are able to scan plastic stuff and blow the air at it. But if you can leave it on, that's better. It makes the thing more three-dimensional too. Um, the the sort of rule of thumb is like plastic bottle or plastic container, plastic lid, leave it on. But if it's two different materials, like it's a glass jar and a metal lid, that you can separate those. That's fine. Sorry for all the audio stuff. I'm scrolling up. I didn't know that those video didn't work that way. I learned something today, so thank you guys for helping me out with that. I'm sorry that you were the guinea pigs for that. But the last, let's see, are caps of milk jugs and soda containers. Yeah, like even though like those caps of like pop bottles and milk jugs, probably a different plastic. They're okay with that. The plastic recyclers on the back end are sort of expecting the lids to be on there. If you're screwing the lid on there, that's fine. Because you can't put them in the cart loose, right? So like just putting them on is fine. Ice cream tubs are listed under hard plastic on your website. Also flower pots and from hanging baskets. Yeah, like the rigid plastic thing is tough because the whole story with that, the rigid plastic program we used to have at the drop-off site we used to be able to take any old sort of plastic thing, whether it be like a children's swimming pool or like a sandbox or plastic tubes, anything. We could put it in a dumpster. Pelletary would get it all shredded, and it would go overseas that way. It's this big mixed bale of plastic stuff. That's not something we can do right now because of those import rules that China had. So that kind of stopped our rigid plastic program because we can't have a big mixed bale of stuff, and we can't effectively police those kind of bins to make certain that only number ones go in this bin or number twos go in that bin. Like, we wouldn't be able to do that. So like things like flower pots, if you don't know what number they are, if it's a 1 or a 2, that's just like a big cup, really. That would be okay in your cart if it's clean. Number 5 even would be okay in your cup if it's clean. But if you can't tell, or if it's too rigid, or there's no number on it, or if it's like some terracotta pot or something like that, that's going to be trash. I think that's okay. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, we got one more. Lids cut from canned goods. Oh, that's a good thing. The lids. A couple ways you can do like lids from like pecans or pecans. Geez, cans of corn. That would make more sense. If the lid kind of fits back into the can, if you crimp the lid closed a little bit where the lid can't fall back out, that would be better. Again, we're trying to combat anything from being flat. going into that cart. I know if you fold it up where it's sort of L-shaped, it probably has a better chance of bouncing through the system that way. But if you get it back in the can and kind of close the lid a little bit, you're better off. Is there a national strategy to stabilize markets for recycling? No, not to the best of my knowledge, not right now. I know the EPA had convened some sort of like recycling guide work team or something, not guide work. Oh, I forget what it was called, but basically that group's all this recommendations was like more education for consumers kind of a thing, which is fine. I mean, I'm supportive of that. We all need to know more, but especially in a world where our stuff's always changing. But there hasn't been any sort of push, to the best of my knowledge, to make it easier for everywhere to recycle this stuff and add some simplicity to the system, which would be my benefit. I know there's sort of a small wave of something called EPR, which is called extended producer responsibility, making the people that have to produce the stuff be responsible for the back end of it more. That I don't know if that's where that stands like politically, honestly. So it's tough. But there hasn't really, unless there's some new change from the new EPA director, it's going to be sort of this hodgepodge of stuff between states and their own little political fiefdoms that make things work. I mean, that's why we can't ban plastic bags here. That would be, there's a state law that prevents cities from banning plastic bags or taxing them. We're not allowed to do that. So we just have to lump it with dealing with them, which is a bummer. But that's just what the state legislator's done. And that's just kind of what we have. Karen asked a question: have recycling measures Madison has taken extended the time the Dane County landfill has remaining to be filled? Yes and no. I mean, we've been recycling for so long here. We certainly haven't had to put new landfills in place. A lot of that's thankful to the state law too, because the states have sort of reinforced the recycling, what can be parked in the landfill, and the Dane County themselves have done a great job they have this construction and demolition facility out there where big construction projects, a lot of that stuff can be recycled, like clean drywall you can use as apply on farm fields, as like the gypsum is something that's a good field additive. You can do more with that wood, the metal, and the concrete, the stuff that's part of those projects. So they've done some work to kind of extend the life the best they can, but we probably got 8 to 10 years left, give or take, on that thing. Even for all our best efforts. Now, so this I'm a little bit cart before the horse here. So I'm not the county, but I know one of the things they're looking at doing, which I am 100% supportive of, is that right across the street from the landfill, there is that golf course. It's a 36-hole golf course that's usually pretty flooded out, that doesn't get a ton of use because it's regular. Whenever you see golf stories in the news, it's usually about the Sahara Hills golf course losing money, and it's literally across the road from the landfill. What the county's thinking about, what I personally think is a pretty good idea, is that turning that golf course into basically something that's called a sustainability business park, where some other places have tried it, where you're sort of co-locating other sort of resource recovery facilities, trying to make it into like a little bit of a launch pad type of area for other small businesses, and locating other recovery things all in this sort of one area where you can have maybe a biodigester for food, a mattress recycler, maybe some sort of battery reclamation thing, or some sort of innovative plastic stuff can all be done there, and then have some other space for the landfill, or what I like to think of it as a space for the stuff you can't recycle yet. Because if those businesses do their job, they can extend that life of that other landfill that you can have there. That might be the last landfill that we would need in our lifetimes, if we do that recovery stuff right. And what's great about putting it across, I know it's a bummer to change like parkland to a landfill, but it's so close to their construction and demolition facility. It's so close to like the interstate access. It's really close from us. As a city perspective, you don't want our landfill being further and further away, because it just makes everything that much more expensive to haul. Like, we wouldn't want to have to try to haul our garbage to Rock County or Illinois, because it's just going to be so much more expensive to deal with that stuff. So like there's a lot, and the other places that are trying it are like Kent County, Michigan, the somewhere in Florida, wherever Florida State is. I can't remember the county that one's in. Phoenix, Arizona is doing something like this. Edmonton, Canada has something similar. Their system is a little bigger than ours up there, where it's sort of this, it's a campus of all these sort of businesses that all work together to try to make money off of this waste stuff on the back end of it. And it's an exciting opportunity because we have a lot of being close to the interstate too means that we can get material really easily from other places. We're not that far away from Milwaukee if they want to take part, if we have to build some plastic reclamation thing that needs more weight than what we can generate. If we get it near because we'll be right near this big transportation hub, it'd be super easy to get more stuff to us if we need to, or the county or whoever runs the thing. It's still sort of, they've made some maps, they made a presentation, but it's not like they're going out for bids or anything like this. I mean, I know the whole golf course thing is still pretty up in the air, but we have a pretty exciting opportunity if we're able to make it work. I mean, personally, if I was going to build the digester, I'd put it on that golf course because the place to take the gas is right across the street. You could probably even run a pipe up and over the road, and just so you don't have to worry about transporting the gas anywhere. It would be super easy. Plus, usually it's pretty rainy out there. It's swamped out. You can't golf there that often. But anyway, sorry. More information than what you meant, Karen, I probably imagine. But yeah, it is. I'm super pumped about. Hopefully, we can get this done. Fingers crossed. Were there any other questions? I know it's past 11:30, so I'm sorry for keeping you guys.
I do have a dumb question.
Sure.
The biodigester EPA funded project, what was the final verdict?
Well, what the report doesn't say do it or don't do it. Because really what the report basically says is going to cost you 20-something million dollars, and you could probably make about $1 million a year back, based off the gas and but I think the $1 million, it might be a little optimistic if I was honest. I mean, I tend to be a pessimist when it comes to that stuff. And because it assumes that the city owns it. So there's tipping fees involved. It assumes a lot more weight that we would get right away. And it's reliant upon a lot of, California has something called a low carbon fuel standard. So if you're able to make gas out of this carbon, it basically makes the natural gas that we would get at that facility more valuable. But that credit's not a forever thing either. So it still makes sense to build it. If the goal is to build the thing in order to make money out of it, I don't know. But if you build a thing to capture the gas, to maybe power our snowplows with natural gas, as opposed to that, or make electricity with it to be able to somehow harness that ability to charge our own fleet that way, and we're okay with it not necessarily being a money maker but just being an environmental benefit, cool, let's do that too. That's for the policymakers to decide. I can just be the I just have to try to explain it to everybody. So.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions at this moment? If you do, please unmute yourself. Anyone?
It's a bit of a shotgun of information. I totally get it. So if there's anything that comes up, email, call, we'll help you out. So,
let me ask you this.
Sure.
Would you be willing to send me a copy of your PowerPoints so that we can then make it available to others at a later point, so they then have a chance to digest it and recycle it so that it can be.
Absolutely. I will say too, I mentioned sort of in passing that master recycling course thing too. If you're interested in that, send an email to the Sustain Dane people. They don't have anything on their website about it yet.
Okay.
But their email address is hello@sustaindane.org. Or if you just go to their website, sustaindane.org, and then scroll down to the contact us thing, just send them an email. It gets you on their mailing list, but at least when that class goes live or people can sign up for it, that you can't. You're going to get a lot of the information that you saw tonight for night one. We sort of walk through that presentation, but we're going to get into a little bit of composting, a little bit of waste reduction stuff, and then make these sort of resources available for people. So if you wanted to go do like a tabling event, say, or give a presentation on your own, that you have that ability and sort of expertise to go out there and or more comfort with the material too, to kind of go out there and knock it out. Because the recycling office in the city is me. You know, as much as I would like to be everywhere, I could use an extra hand here. George had more money than me. That's why people knows who he is. Like he was on TV doing commercials and stuff, and I don't have the budget for that. So I need boots on the ground.
Well, yeah, I thank you for that, because we do have a very active conservation crew, for lack of a better term. And, you know, and you can send that to us by email so that I can share it with others.
Yep, will do.
Anything else for the good of the order, folks? Brian's given us a lot of information to deal with, and you're an excellent presenter, and so I want to thank you again for that. And Karen for organizing and recruiting you and making this all come together. Anything else?
Yeah. No, happy to do it. Like, and if you do want to talk snow plowing at some point in time, you know, I'm the same guy for that. I can certainly help to explain why that snows in your driveway and everything else. So
at some point I might talk to you about snow gates so that we can take care of our driveway.
Ooh, I got a whole speech. If you got time, I could tell you why snow gates don't work. So they don't work for regular plow trucks, for one. You have to have them on loaders or graders, and they actually double the amount of time that it takes to plow. One of our big complaints we see right now is it takes us 12 hours to plow a city. The places that have put snow gates on their loaders and that to just try to prevent the snow in the driveways, they double the amount of time that it takes to do their whole city. So like, we're going to take our 12-hour thing and make it into a 24-hour thing to get all the streets plowed back. And it doesn't prevent the snow from getting in the driveway, it lessens it. Any snow amount over 5 inches goes over the gate and still in your driveway. And then you still get these big mounds of snow on either end of your driveway. When the gate lifts up, it just dumps the snow right there. So it's, you know, snow just stinks, man. Like, there's nothing you can do with it. Like, you could try to push it around and it's just a bummer. You know?
Okay. Well, again, I do thank you, and I thank everyone for attending, and let's see where this letting this goes. And as Karen said in her chat, very interesting and very exciting. So thank you again.
No problem. Thanks so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. Have a good
you.
rest of your day. Go Pat,
Thanks
go,
so
right?
much. Yeah. Really appreciate your time. Thank you,
No
Brian.
problem.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Next week.